Good evening. We want to use this moment to wish the former head of state, who turns 90 today, talking about General Yakubu Gowon, a happy birthday, in good health, of course. And you know, one of man's greatest assets is health. Still, when that asset contends with the challenge of having access to affordable primary health care, it poses major concern, not just for the citizens, but for those in authority. As Nigeria continues to navigate the complexities of healthcare demands, stakeholders believe investment in primary healthcare will improve access and address challenges faced at that level, thereby propelling a brighter future for communities. This is because good health is core to harnessing the nation's greatest asset. In ensuring improved access to affordable and quality primary health care for Nigerians, the federal government, on its part, has demonstrated commitment to strengthening access to primary health care, especially with the launch of the Health Sector Renewal Compact last year. As part of efforts to ensure that all Nigerians are on the path to having access to improved quality health services and without financial hardship, transforming the healthcare system in the country is pivotal to the well-being of citizens by ensuring universal access to quality care for all. But you ask, what are the challenges in the primary healthcare system and how much commitment are stakeholders put in to improve the sector and create a path for opportunities? Tonight, on Weekend File, we will be looking at ways of strengthening primary healthcare. Access, talking about the challenges and opportunities. Our guest is Dr. Muyi Aina, Executive Secretary and CEO of the National Primary Healthcare Development Authority. As usual, we'll bring you situation reports from across the Federation as filed in by our correspondents. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguela. First, let's bring you the news. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has returned to Abuja after his 2 weeks leave abroad. The presidential aircraft landed at about 7:15 p.m. at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. He was received by a delegation of top government functionaries led by Chief of Staff Femi Gbajabiamila, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State. President Tinubu departed Abuja on October 2nd, if you recall, for the United Kingdom, from where he reportedly moved to France midway into his leave. In a statement then, the Presidential Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, indicated that the President was to spend 2 weeks as a working vacation and a retreat to reflect on his administration's economic reforms. Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, says the President is now prepared to continue his assignment.
Doing in the last year and a half requires some rest, and he's gone and he's back now, and he's well rested, rejuvenated, and again, it was even just a working holiday anyway, so he was working and resting at the same time. Now that he's back in Nigeria, all hands are back on deck, and he's ready to go.
Okay, what do you think Nigerians should be expecting now that he's back and ready to get back to work?
Just to continue from where he left off in terms of putting policies in place and making sure things are done right, making sure we're going the right direction. He's the captain of the captain of the plane, and he's working to get to a cruising level, which is exactly where we're going. And in a matter of time, Nigerians will begin to see the fruits of his labor and our labor. And so, I mean, just we're all expectant and hopeful, and we believe in the renewed hope. And Mr. President is back in Nigeria to continue the good work he's doing.
Of course, you know, the nation is on standstill today because of one man who, in acknowledgement of his sustained commitment to the peace and unity of Nigeria, a grateful nation rose in unison to celebrate one of its former leaders, General Yakubu Gowon, as he turns 90. At a special Thanksgiving service to honor the former head of state, Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, says his unwavering devotion to Nigeria offers hope for the future of the nation. Let's get details from State House correspondent Adeni Itao.
At 32, General Yakubu Gowon came into national and international reckoning as Nigeria's head of state. Today at 90, strong, healthy and impactful, he is in God's presence, joined by former and serving leaders to offer thanks. Thanksgiving hymns and soul-lifting renditions, interspersed with Bible readings by the celebrants, were rendered to appreciate God for the life of the former head of state. It was a day to recall the virtues General Gowon stood for, and Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, who was aged 6 when he took the reign of power, could not but highlight his simplicity and patriotism.
Looking back, I realized that your life is a life destined by God, who called you to be an exemplary leader of good in this world of cynicism and despair. Your life of simplicity, humility, grace, dignity, and patriotism to our nation gives us hope that Nigeria is all we have, and we have to do everything in our power to make it work. Your love for country is infectious.
Thanking the celebrant on behalf of the president and the nation, the First Lady notes that his special touch on leadership offers a lot of lessons.
The greatest commandment is loving God, loving our neighbors, and all as we love ourselves. That on these two commandments hang the laws and the prophets. You have both loved this nation, the people, and taught us all how to be contented, humble, reliable, gracious, available, and show love to all. We are grateful.
Basking in the celebration, General Yakubu Gowon urged Nigerians to continue to pray for the country, reminding them of his famous quote that to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done.
We kept Nigeria together, and all Nigerians assisted me, all Nigerians from all parts of the country assisted me to keep Nigeria one, and we did it. Even though we had to fight an unfortunate civil war to keep it together.
From the National Christian Center, Adeni Itaiwo, NTA News.
Well, President Bola Tinubu has commended former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, whom he says can be rightly called the father of national infrastructure, for his significant contributions to nation building and development. In a statement he personally issued, the president says the celebrant's sterling example remains an inspiration for those in government, encouraging them to do their best for the country. Acknowledging the former head of state as a gentleman extraordinaire, President Tinubu describes him as a brilliant officer whose life story has inspired many Nigerians, whose philosophy, no victor, no vanquished, helped promote national healing, peace and reconciliation after the country's civil war. President Tinubu says since he became the nation's leader, General Gowon has been his counselor, offering advice when needed, recalling his role when the ECOWAS had a misunderstanding with some of the Sahelian states. The president says General Gowon has continued to deploy his Nigeria Praise program in prayer and intercession for the country's peace and unity, praying God to imbue General Gowon with more wisdom, good health, and more years to continue to be useful to Nigeria and humanity. Meanwhile, at a public lecture to mark General Gowon's birthday, speakers emphasized the need to build a global Nigeria that the likes of the general envisioned. Let's get details from Kelvin Ehunwahi.
Reputed for being among those who laid the foundation for a new Nigeria, at 90, the former head of state, no doubt, speakers noted, would have loved to see a greater, secured and self-sufficient Nigeria at this time of his life. But like the guest lecturer, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, president of the Africa Development Bank Group, said, now is the time for the country's leaders to begin to rebuild the country to take its place in the global space. A country that put education as priority, because without a formidable human capital, Nigeria will not attain its potential to lead Africa into prosperity. A reason, the AFDB is investing $100 million to establish a youth entrepreneurship investment bank in Nigeria.
As head of state, General Gowon's National Development Plan was a masterpiece. Nigeria instituted an industrial policy to support automobile assembly plants. How proud we were to ride made in Nigeria Peugeots and Volkswagens.
From President Bola Tinubu, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, the unifying personality of General Yakubu Gowon is a testament that a united and progressive Nigeria is possible.
Our President has tremendous respect for your person and for your services to our dear country.
You are worthy to be nationally celebrated while you are still alive.
We owe him immense gratitude for the perseverance and tenacity in keeping this country in one piece and at peace with itself.
Other former Nigerian leaders sent in goodwill messages to eulogize the celebrant, who himself, in his usual way, called for a sense of nationhood among Nigerians.
Thank you all for celebrating my 90th birthday. Now, may I also wish each and every one of you your happy birthday and future 90th birthday.
In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye, NTA News.
Meanwhile, former President Muhammadu Buhari has also paid tribute to former military head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, as he marks his birthday, praising the visionary leadership and dedication to Nigeria's unity and progress. In a message to General Gowon on his 90th birthday, former President Buhari said the former military ruler's far-sighted leadership and commitment to the nation's unity and future development was praiseworthy. In the same vein, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, congratulates General Yakubu Gowon on the occasion of his 90th birthday, describing him as patriotism personified. The Speaker notes General Gowon's invaluable contributions for Nigeria to remain one indivisible entity, applauding him as a national hero. Also, on behalf of the Northern State Governors Forum, its chairman, Governor of Gombe State, Muhammadu Inuwahaya, has felicitated with General Yakubu Gowon on the occasion of his 90th birthday, lauding him as an exceptional patriot and statesman whose life epitomizes service, unity, and peace. The forum described the former head of state as an iconic leader and uncommon patriot whose resolve to preserve the unity of the country during the civil war remains a cornerstone of Nigeria's national identity. All right, let's inform you that the special documentary produced by the Nigerian Television Authority to mark the 90 years anniversary of the former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, now comes up at 8:30 tomorrow evening. The documentary, which was earlier scheduled for 8 p.m. this evening, could not come up, of course, due to the live transmission of the special dinner organized in honor of the general. We urge you to stay tuned, as this documentary will reveal a whole lot from the life and times of General Gowon, who opened up on issues he has never said before. Let's turn to other issues. Minister of Works Dave Umahi has formally flagged off the reconstruction of some of the Abuja-Kaduna highway utilizing concrete technology. The minister reiterated the commitment of the federal government to bring in succor to travelers along that corridor. Abdullahi Mohammed reports.
Tomorrow belongs to this set. Then here is democracy in action. It's the latest move by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to strike the nail on the coffin of the slow pace of works on the Abuja-Kaduna highway, which has been a pool of frustration to motorists.
We apologize for the distorted portion, talking about the loss of audio on that report. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission is to conduct an investigative hearing with a view to identifying immediate and remote causes of grid disturbances and nationwide power outages. In a statement, NERC says, in line with the Electricity Act 2023, the ongoing efforts to unbundle the transmission company of Nigeria and establish an independent system operator will engender more discipline in grid management and optimize investment in infrastructure. In the meantime, TCN attributes the grid disturbance that occurred at 8:16 a.m. this Saturday to an explosion at a current transformer in Jabba transmission substation. Following successful switchings and isolation of the 40 current transformer by the team of TCN engineers, supply has been restored to the substation and other parts of the grid. And let's talk health. Efforts to tackle the scourge of breast cancer among women in Nigeria is heightening as the Nigerian Army Officers' Wives Association, NAOA, commemorates this year's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports that the president of the association, Maria Lagbaja, in a message says the association is committed to lifelong care through partnership with relevant health partners to save more lives.
The 4 Nigerian Army Officers' Wives Association Breast Cancer Awareness Program to commemorate the global event with beneficiaries drawn from NAOA members and Nigerian Army Soldiers' Wives Association.
Can cause cancer in the child.
The periodic enlightenment focuses on causes, prevention, and management of the disease.
I cannot be familiar with my patient's breast. I have to be familiar with my own breast. And how can I be familiar with my own breast? By constantly self-examining my breasts.
The president, NAOA, Maria Biodun Lagbaja, represented by the deputy president of the association, stressed that comprehensive care and support for the military community are the core values of the association.
This year's global theme, which says no one should face breast cancer alone, resonates deeply with our values. It is a call for each of us to be a source of strength and compassion for the women in our lives.
So far, more than 1,000 women have benefited from the program initiated in 2023.
This event and the lectures have, strengthened the idea for we women to love ourselves first.
People can live as long as 10 or 20 years even after breast cancer diagnosis. I learned how to know whether I have a lumps in my breast.
A 2022 breast cancer survey by World Health Organization indicates that 2.3 million women die from the preventable scourge, and this is one of the reasons the association is not relenting in reducing the prevalence in Nigeria. In Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
In other news, Governor Umar Namadi has received at the Government House in Dutse the National Chairman of Progressives Congress, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, who was in Dutse with all the party chieftains to commensurate with the Jigawa people over the recent petrol fire incident that claimed lives and left many others critically injured. The APC chairman, in company of the state governor Umar Namadi, visited some of the victims at the Federal University Dutse Teaching Hospital. Mohammed Musa Askira reports.
The APC National Chairman Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, while attributing the fire incidents to the will of God, commends the efforts of the Jigawa state government for containing the situation by taking full responsibility of the medical expenses of the victims. In company of the Jigawa Governor Umar Namadi, Dr. Ganduje, alongside other party chieftains, visit the petrol tanker fire victims at the Federal University Dutse Teaching Hospital to commensurate with the victims receiving treatments at the hospital. Governor Umar Namadi appreciates the APC national delegation for identifying with the state during these trying times.
This is very unfortunate. So we advise people, when such things happen, from experience, they should run away not to come near to the scene. I think that will save lives.
I want to use this opportunity to thank the National Chairman and members of the National Working Committee for this condolence visit. Your Excellency, this has shown the family relationship that is in APC as a party.
The APC national delegation is one of many political and apolitical organizations, business community, and concerned citizens that have been trooping into Jigawa to commiserate with the state over the petrol tanker accidents in Majia town of Taura local government area. In Dutse, Muhammad Musa Askira, NTA News.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll begin our conversation on ways of strengthening the primary health care in Nigeria, talking about access, challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. Before we bring in our guests to have that conversation on strengthening Nigeria's primary healthcare access, we have some reports for you. The leadership of Nigeria's health sector has always focused on building a resilient primary healthcare system across the country to achieve the 2030 universal health coverage target. In this report, Oluseyi Adiagbo delves into challenges affecting quality primary healthcare in Nigeria. Let's see that.
The World Health Organization considers primary health care as the most efficient and cost-effective approach to achieving universal health coverage.
Had human heart at that time.
This is the same perspective Cynthia Anthony shares, and after a relocation to the Federal Capital Territory, she believes her pregnancy will be better handled at a primary health care center.
At the time they noticed my child was not properly stable in the womb, I think, or I was expecting, they should be able to inform me, but nothing. They just told me it's malaria. And although I lost the child, but the experience was a bad one.
Cynthia's still bad experience is still fresh in her memory, but she says this must be the priority of actors implementing the revitalization of primary health care in Nigeria.
There's an element, for instance, when it comes to tracking financial flows to the states, to primary healthcare centers. As you have heard, the integrated healthcare workers training is on the way.
Critical to achieving this is what is called the Vulnerable Group Fund, and the BHCPF is to make sure that while we are fixing the primary healthcare facilities, on the other hand, those who actually go there do not have to pay out of pocket for anything.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency also engages administrators in the health sector, as well as religious and traditional leaders, leveraging lessons learned in Nigeria's attainment of a wide polio-free status to enhance coverage of child immunization.
Human resources at that level are not available. The infrastructure is a distraction. Getting there, even getting there in terms of where the location and the road network leading to it is really not even accessible. And these are all the things that should be addressed.
In fact, we advocated for all member states to reorient the health system strengthening toward primary health care.
As these healthcare champions work tirelessly to reposition Nigeria's primary healthcare system, there is growing hope that the nation can meet the universal health coverage USA target by 2030. In Abuja, Oluseyi Adiagbo, NTA News.
Well, Lagos, one of the most densely populated cities in Africa, faces a multitude of challenges in providing adequate health care to its residents. While efforts are on to change the narrative, experts say there is still need for all tiers of government to contribute immensely towards improving infrastructure, increase funding, and foster stronger community engagement. Let's get details from Jessiton Moses.
Healthcare experts argue that current state of primary healthcare centers in Lagos is insufficient to meet the needs of rapidly growing population. Many facilities remain under-resourced, lacking the basic equipment and supplies needed to deliver effective healthcare.
Local governments are in charge of primary health care,
but who are they accountable to? Who is asking them questions? Who is giving them direction? So I think it's important as a nation, we must have healthcare indices, healthcare metrics that we must use to measure the impact of and the outcome of our primary healthcare system. While there have been efforts to secure financial support, current allocations fall short of what is required to adequately fund primary healthcare centers.
The budget for this year, I think, was less than 5% went to health at the national level. Lagos has still done a bit better. Lagos is about 9%.
The fact that Lagos State is one of the states with the highest maternal mortality rate as well as the neonatal rate is an indication that we are not faring well. Because if we have got adequate funding, we will have been able to take necessary steps.
While grassroots campaigns exist, many experts feel they lack sufficient reach and impact. Strengthening partnership with community leaders, investing in health education, and promoting preventive care are seen as critical steps towards creating a more resilient healthcare system. In Lagos, Jesuton Moses, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests now to pick up with the conversation. We have in the studio Dr. Muyi Aino. He's the Executive Secretary and CEO of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Aino.
Good evening, Ruth. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. But I'm sure people who don't have access to getting this primary healthcare we're talking about are not happy. Of course, you know there are consequences. But tell us, what are those factors that limit, access to primary healthcare across the country and how it's affecting this population?
Thank you, Ruth. I think it's important to quickly mention, before I specifically answer your question, that yes, in fact, there are many challenges that have historically and still currently plague the primary healthcare system in Nigeria. I think some very substantive strides have been made even in the last 1+ years of this administration, and I do hope that I get a chance to speak to some of them. But to your question, I think if you look historically, the level of funding to the health sector broadly in Nigeria, if you think about the per capita spend, which is a typical metric that is used to measure for healthcare, is one of the lowest ones in the world, even amongst comparable countries, historically. So the way that plagues out, of course, that trickles down to the primary health care system. Now, the way that shows up is both on the supply side and the demand side. There has been chronic underfunding. So the ability to invest in the infrastructure that you need. We saw examples of health facilities, access roads, power supplies, the investments that is needed for the human resource. And we are all aware of, until recent times, a lot of emigration, of both internal and external migration, in fact, of health workers in Nigeria. All of that relates to the underfunding of the system that has been for many years. Also, the equipment that we need, the tools, all of that. But also on the demand side is also when people do go to the facilities to access care, their ability to pay for it sometimes is limited. And, the way you solve that is some sort of financial protection, which is what the National Health Insurance Authority has also been working on. Historically, the coverage has been very low, also related to underfunding.
Okay, it's good you mentioned investment, which is what stakeholders have been advocating for, especially the aspect of funding. Now, I'm made to understand that more than 200 billion have been marked, for the revitalization of this primary health care at the state level. That is through IDA financing and the Basic Care Provision Fund. How is that, being utilized?
I think the bright spot that we have now is that, fortunately, President Tinubu has prioritized healthcare, broadly speaking, as part of his renewed hope agenda. And the way that has played out is a substantial increase in funding to healthcare since the beginning of this administration. If you look at domestic funding, for example, at the national level, there has been a multiple-fold increase in our appropriation, at least in Naira terms, which has made a lot more resources available for revitalization. I think, you know, if you also look downstream to the subnational units, the states, there are at least a number of states that we can point to who have followed suit, who have taken the lead of the federal government and is increasing the resources that they are committing. If you also look among our partners, you know, you mentioned the IDA funding from the World Bank. Well, there are many others through the sector-wide approach that, you know, the government is taking to implement the Nigeria Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative. A lot of resources have been mobilized, really targeted at improving quality and access at the lowest levels. So the example you gave is really, you know, some financing from the World Bank that is currently at the states. And yes, it is in fact, you know, over 200 million, really targeted at improving at the state level health facility quality, equipping them, some investment in workforce, but also some of the secondary facilities. So the general hospitals, as you know, the level of care that primary health centers provide, you know, doesn't cut across everything. Even if you just take maternal care, for example, basic obstetric services are available at the primary health center, but when you do have emergency procedures needed, cesarean sections and the like, ideally you want to refer to more advanced facilities. So the ability for those facilities to absorb and take care of these cases, but also the linkage, the referral and the transportation are all of the things that have now been worked on.
But Dr. Aina, from the reports we've seen, some of the respondents or people who have, you know, shared these challenges will tell you they don't even have access to getting there. Information, they say, is power. Are you carrying stakeholders at the grassroots level, talking about community leaders, religious leaders, to pass on this information to the people who really need this quality care?
So that's a very, very good point, Ruth. I think as we have defined a path from where we are now to where we want to be. We did, you know, when we looked at the facilities, even the ones that are directly funded by the federal government, when we came in, less than a fifth were at the point where they can provide all of the basic services, you know. But I can tell you that as we have activated all of these interventions, you know, we're already recording tangible progress. As of the last count, I think last week, about 239 or so have been completed across 6 or 7 states in Nigeria. And through the resources that you spoke about, amongst others, there is at least another 2,000 that will be finished over the next 1 year. With direct funding from the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, for example, we have another 320 or thereabouts that are currently in the process of being revitalized. Now, what we did to prioritize, when you don't have enough resources, you do two things. You, one, try to get the most value from the resources that you have. So there have also been a lot of investment in the transparency and accountability around the resources, especially the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. But also you prioritize what you focus on. And in deciding that, there's been a lot of engagement with the communities through the CSOs, but also through the traditional leaders, through the religious leaders. There was a lot of listening sessions that we held to try to figure out what the priorities are and where we should go first. The hope is to ultimately revitalize 17,600 primary health centers across the country. But as we're expanding towards that, we're starting from the places with the biggest need in terms of disease burden, in terms of mortality rates, but also existing access. You know, where there are existing alternatives, you know that you can probably wait a little bit. But where there is no other option, that's where we're going.
Okay, Dr. Aina, we'll pick up with this conversation. I'm glad you're igniting hope among Nigerians. Let's take a break. And we're glad you're there. Let's take one more report, then we'll continue with our conversation. Dr. Aina is still in the studio. Primary healthcare system is one fundamental aspect of life, you already know that is receiving utmost priority in Borno State. We hear, following the significant progress made so far in the state's ongoing recovery plan, owing to the series of devastations experienced in the healthcare sector. Abubakar Musa reports.
The years of Boko Haram insurgency experienced in Borno had to a large extent made negative impact on primary health care, thereby affecting its core mandate of health promotion to disease prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, as well as palliative care, among others. However, the primary health care in Borno can be said to be a whole new ballgame now, owing to the unwavering determination being made by the state government and stakeholders at all levels, especially in terms of expansion, as well as construction and reconstruction of facilities to meet growing health demands of patients.
The government procured almost over a billion, worth over a billion drugs and medical consumables under the drug policy fund. The crisis affected most of the communities. And we know some of the communities, they cannot afford to buy the drugs. And then those drugs, the government procured. Now, it will reduce the stress of our poor people to get their drugs. For maternal drugs, that drugs are free.
For us in the Primary Healthcare Board, this is the first time in the state to have an allocation of 15% in line with the Abuja Declaration. So therefore, we are opportune to have a leader who has a great passion to the health care delivery system in the state.
The 9th September flood disaster experienced in Maiduguri and environs has prompted the federal and state governments, as well as other humanitarian partners, to channel resources towards preventing unforeseen circumstances within the primary healthcare system. In Maiduguri, Abubakar Musa, NTA News.
All right, Dr. I know you've seen what Maiduguri is, dealing with, and just like other parts of the country. But just recently, about a few days ago, Nigeria received doses of the R21 matrix vaccine, malaria vaccine, and more than 800,000. If we're talking making the primary healthcare functional, then there must be effective delivery of services. Immunization is one challenge, that level faces. So will they be cut off or will they partake?
I think, Ruth, this week was particularly exciting for many of us in the sector because, as we all know, Nigeria is a very high burden country for malaria. Everybody knows somebody who's been affected even within the last several months. And as you know, vaccines are a very helpful tool in combating infectious diseases. Now, the malaria vaccine is a relatively new tool that adds on to existing tools that we have had for malaria control. We were fortunate that because of the leadership of and prioritization of the healthcare sector by the president and the leaders in the health sector, the coordinating minister and the Honorable Minister of State for Health, we were able to work with our partners to get 1 million doses in the first allocation. Now, we've only received 846,000 doses out of that. We expect the balance in a few days. Now, that's not enough to go around Nigeria because it's an expensive vaccine. It's being made, the global supply is still being expanded. But we took what we have, and as we think was right to do, we prioritized. Okay. And we prioritized Kebbi State and Bayelsa State, really looking at the disease burden. Kebbi State has a 52% prevalence of malaria, meaning if you kind of take a random sample in a year, you will find, more than half of the people have suffered from malaria. That's significant and takes a toll not just on the well-being of people, but also economic costs to the people, but also to the health system. So we prioritize both of these states, and now that we have the vaccines in stock, we're working with the state authorities to map out specific execution plans and how we want to further prioritize in terms of the rollout in each of these two states, and we will be communicating that very widely, working with you all in the media space, but also engaging with the communities as well. The hope is that as we do this in two states and learn from it, it's going to inform how we expand the malaria vaccine. Again, it's a tool that must be deployed judiciously. yes, across the country. Thank you.
Okay, and Dr. Aina, let's also look at opportunities, ways of exploring, ways of improving, rather, the primary healthcare in Nigeria. If we want to look at the value chain in the primary healthcare, is the agency looking at ways of, expanding and enhancing Nigeria's capabilities, manufacturing capabilities? Of course, the deficit of drugs and the demand that keeps going high.
In fact, the imperative to increase the value chain within healthcare in Nigeria goes beyond the agency. Okay. As part of the president's agenda, he established the president's initiative for healthcare value chain, which is headed by coordinator that he appointed, Dr. Abdul Mukhtar. And what he is doing with his team there is really looking at and developing ways to guarantee the supply chain in Nigeria. That's everything from market shaping, how do you do pool procurement of things, to fostering local production. So if you look at basic tools that we use and we have used for years, syringes, for injections and for vaccines, mosquito nets, that are just made from cotton that we grow locally and things like that. Most of our essential medications, even when they are produced, they're not produced at scale. So a lot of investments that the government is putting now to enable local manufacturing so that, one, it creates jobs, healthcare stops being just a burden, but also an economic enhancer for the country. But also, when there are tightening global supplies, as we saw during COVID, we're not shafted. We have our own local sources. We can prioritize ourselves as well.
Okay, and on a final note, very briefly, what is the future of Nigeria's primary healthcare, especially with a target to upgrade and expand to more than 17,000 primary healthcare centers in the next 3 years?
The vision that the president has set for us, and which is the mandate that the coordinating minister has given us, all of the agencies within the health sector, is that every Nigerian, in the next couple of years, as we get to where we're going, wherever they are, have the access to the basic services they need through a primary healthcare system that they trust. Trust is important because when you are able to meet the needs of people and you are able to work with them transparently and you're able to share and engage information with them, then people can believe in what you're doing. So we look forward to partnering with you as we go on this journey.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mui Aina. I like the word you mentioned, trust. When there is trust, there's availability, there's affordability, and there's access, right?
That's correct.
Okay, Dr. Mui Aina is the Executive Director and CEO of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Thank you for your time on Weekend File.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you for staying tuned. Up next is Sports Update, and Francisca is set to give us all the details happening.
Thank you, Ruth. Welcome to Sports Update. The Nigeria under-17 girls are currently taking on their counterparts from Ecuador in the second group game of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup in Dominican Republic. The match is at halftime now, with scoreline being 1-0 in favor of Nigeria. Meanwhile, ex-professional All-Stars have emerged winners of the 4th edition of the Abuja All-Stars Invitational Tournament, which ended on Saturday at the FIFA Goal Project Package B session of Moshood Abiola National Stadium, Abuja. The ex-pros defeated Yanya All-Stars 5-4 on penalties after the game had ended goalless in regulation time, as organizers say the main aim of networking as well as keeping fit has been achieved.
We have seen God in action. We have seen protection. We have seen good football. We have seen supporting. We have seen networking. And we have seen a good environment being given to us by the president of the Nigerian Football Federation.
Our ex-professionals are always ex-professionals. So, which means we are going to defend it from the bottom of our heart, and we are going to win everything possible, both highest goal scorer, the best goalkeeper, and
Meanwhile, Match Day 8 action will get underway across different venues in the Nigeria Premier Football League on Sunday, with 6 matches to be decided. It will be a battle of 2 strugglers when Bayelsa United and Heartland face off Yenagoa, with Eyimba away to El Kanemi Warriors. In other fixtures, Kano Pillars will entertain Kwara United. Plateau United play away to Abia Warriors, while Remo Stars will host Bendel Insurance. Away from Nigeria, Super Eagles forward Victor Boniface shrugged off an early penalty miss to score the winner in Bayer Leverkusen comeback victory over Frankfurt. In Italy, Samuel Chukwueze opened his goal account for the season for AC Milan as his 13th-minute goal gave the Rossoneri a 1-0 victory over Udinese. In Turkey, Victor Osimhen came off the bench to score a spectacular overhead kick goal that sealed a 3-0 victory for Galatasaray against Antalyaspor in the Turkish Super League. To the English Premier League, Bournemouth ended 10-man Arsenal's unbeaten start to the season with a 2-0 win at the Vitality Stadium after William Saliba was shown by the first red card of his career. Manchester United came from a goal down to record a 2-1 win over Brentford at Old Trafford, with Tottenham also recording a 4-1 comeback win over West Ham United, just as there were away wins Aston Villa, Leicester City, Brighton and Everton. Finally, Novak Djokovic claimed bragging right over longtime rival Rafael Nadal by winning their last head-to-head singles clash 6-2, 7-5 at the Six Kings Slam exhibition event in Saudi Arabia. Nadal announced earlier this month that he will retire from tennis after refreshing Spain in Malaga in November, with the 38-year-old booking another meeting with Djokovic after losing to compatriot Carlos Alcaraz in the finals. Well, that's it on Sports Update. It's back to Ruth.
Thank you so much, Francisca, for that update. It's time to go home, right? Let's go home. It's good night from us on behalf of the team of Weekend File. Good night. I'm Ruth Aguele.